analysis, policy conversations, and real-time insights shaping industries, enterprises, and national development across Nigeria and beyond. I am Damilola Lawrence. This is Ask the Experts, where we bring you conversations with professionals, industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and stakeholders, helping us understand the trends, opportunities, and challenges shaping business growth in today's economy. Yes, Nigeria banking sector is once again undergoing a major transformation following the central bank recapitalization directive. The policy is designed to strengthen banks' financial capacity, improve resilience against economic shock, and position the industry to support larger investments and long-term economic growth. For many bank workers, one of the biggest concerns is job security. Previous banking reforms have often been accompanied by mergers, acquisitions, restructuring, and workforce adjustments, raising questions about whether history could repeat itself. Employees are also seeking clarity on how recapitalization may affect career opportunities, workplace expectations, and the future of banking jobs in an increasingly digital industry. At the same time, experts argue that a stronger banking sector could create new opportunities for businesses, investors, and the wider economy by increasing lending capacity, boosting confidence in the financial system, and supporting national development. The challenge will be balancing these long-term benefits with the welfare of employees who remain at the heart of the banking industry. And yet, today, we will be discussing the banking recapitalization drive and job security. And just joining us in the studio is Mr. Isaac Fanimokun.
Recapitalization of Fanimokun.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. He is the acting president of the Association of Senior Staff of Banks, Insurance and Financial Institutions, as BFI, the foremost trade union representing senior staff in Nigeria banking, insurance, and financial service sector. The association is committed to promoting workers' rights, promoting industrial harmony, advocating fair labor practices, and contributing to policies that strengthen the financial service industry. And yes, with extensive experience in labor relations and financial sector, he has worked closely with stakeholders on issues relating to employee welfare, workplace standard, banking reforms, and sustainable industry developments. And yes, his insights provide an important perspective on how recapitalization can be implemented while safeguarding the interests of workers and supporting the long-term growth of Nigeria's banking sector. Good morning, Mr. Isaac, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Damilola.
And how are you doing this morning, sir?
We are good. And how are you too?
Very well, sir. So the first question is, what really is recapitalization, sir?
Okay. Good morning, listeners out there. Yeah, like she said, my name is Recapitalisation of Fanimokun, the acting national president of Association of Senior Staff of Banks, Insurance and Financial Institutions. Coming back to your question,
right,
recapitalization. So recapitalization can simply be defined as a corporate or organization, corporate or regulatory process of shoring of capital base of banks. Of course, why do we need recapitalization?
Okay.
Recapitalization basically is for banks to be able to, when you were doing your introduction, you mentioned something around financial stability.
Yes, sir.
So banks need to recapitalize so that one, they'll be able to do big ticket businesses. When they show their capital, they'll be more resilient, there'll be financial stability, and banks will be able to contribute to the reset of the economy because they'll be able to lend more, there'll be stability in the sector, there'll be security of depositors' fund and all that. So that is basically in layman's term the definition of capitalization. Shoring a regulatory or corporate process of shoring of capital base of banks, which could be through issuance of equity.
Okay.
It can be through IPO,
yes,
private placement, it could be through merger and acquisition, it could be through debt restructuring and all that. So that is basically what recapitalization is all about.
All right. So ever since this came in place, since 2025, right? If I'm correct?
No.
Okay.
The current one that, yes, we can say we have even finished recapitalization, but because the CBN have been magnanimous
Okay.
so that to protect workers in that sector. A few banks have not really met the recapitalization requirements. The ones under CBN, let's say, management.
Okay.
And because they do not want to create panic in the sector, so they are still managing. So we can say technically that the recapitalization in the banking sector is still on. But this one, the current one, which can be referred to as tiered recapitalization, actually started in 2024.
Okay. So now with this, most staff in the banking sector really do not, truly understand what recapitalization means. And now they are actually thinking it could be probably a means of laying off staffs. So does this really affect staffs in the banking sector?
Well, let me say that their fears might not be far from the truth in the past, because we have seen in the past, at least the 2004-2005 recapitalization during Governor Soludo's era as CBN governor. Prior to that time, we had, I think, over 100 banks. Pockets of banks here and there, small banks, individual banks. Everybody wanted to own banks and all that. But at the end of that exercise, I think we ended up with 25 banks from around 89, that period. So definitely some people lost their job, because there was no way those 25 banks would have been able to absorb workers and staffers in all those 89 existing banks prior to that recapitalization exercise. So some people lost their job. But of course, this latest one, the reality is, give it to the current administration. In fairness, the CBN has been able to manage the latest one, which was why they gave enough time for banks to be able to meet up with this recapitalization from 2024 to 2027. Like I said earlier, they are not even concluded, because a few banks are still yet to meet their recapitalization, which CBN is managing, so that there won't be panic in the industry, especially concerning the perilous time that the world is in presently. You understand? So, and you will agree with me that this latest one, there has not been any loss of job, because virtually all the banks met up with the no capital requirements. The only bank thus far that have not been able to meet up with the capitalization, they are, of course, they were assimilated, or they merged with another bank, which was Unity Bank, and they merged with Providence Bank, and nobody, to the best of my knowledge, was laid off. Do you understand? Of course, it does not even need to be during the capitalization that banks can decide to do. No, don't use the word layoff. That they can do rationalization. Do you understand? Which could be because of business exigency, it could be because of anything. But of course, in that instance, they will have to discuss with us. We sit down, we discuss, because you cannot force a willing employee on an unwilling employer, and vice versa. So we sit down and we discuss. There will be terms of exit for such staff. Do you understand? So there is no issue. As we speak, nobody has lost his or her job due to this latest recapitalization exercise.
So aside job security, are there other ways that recapitalization can, affect people, especially in the banking sector?
Obviously. The principal negative effect of recapitalization when it's not well managed is this job loss. Remember, when I started that, I said recapitalization is for banks to shore their capital base so that they can do more business, big ticket transactions. Like the latest one, you will know that we have different tiers of licenses that banks cannot decide to opt for. You can decide to go for international license, international banking license, meaning that you want to be doing transactions internationally and all that. Where we have the Fugas, the likes of First Bank, Zenith, GTCO, FCMB and all that, Fidelity Bank, all and the likes, they have international license. So meaning that in such instance, banks that, we have some of them that hitherto were ordinary national bank or regional bank, but now they are moved to that category 1, tier 1 of international bank, meaning that they will need more people. So there won't be any reason for them to leave, or rather they will employ more hands, because they will spread, they will branch out and all that. Yes, other ways they can affect people is, the reality is in these times that we are in, we all need to reskill.
Okay, sir.
So any staff or any bank worker that at this time is not reskilling, because now the competition is stiffer in the industry. That is the reality, because we now have strong banks in Nigeria. So meaning that, and they are competing within the same space. So, and if you want to be relevant as a bank, so while I tell my people, I usually tell them that we all have to be individually responsible for our careers. If you want to be relevant in the industry, you cannot be doing what you were doing 20 years ago. Do you understand? And still think you'll still be relevant. So meaning that you need to reskill, you need to learn, either through certifications. Of course, in these big banks now, you have to, and in this digital age, you have to learn digital skills, data analytics, risk management skills,
Yes, sir.
different application technology and all that. So anybody that is able to move with that trend by updating his or herself, of course, will not have any problem. But those that refuse to upskill, of course, you should know the implication, because banks are now talking about productivity per staff. They want to see what you are bringing to people, what you are contributing, because the competition, like I said, is stiffer, and nobody is ready to be carrying laggards. That is the reality. So I tell my people, and I can confirm to you that my members, they are on top of their game. They are learning every day, which is why we all go to, every day we go to schools, one certification or the other, online courses. It is not because of anything, just to update ourselves so that we'll be relevant, and nobody will just call you that you are no longer relevant. You bring all these whiskies. The Gen Zs, they are ready to take over, but we are not ready to partake the same for now. Thank you.
All right, sir. So, aside, for the recapitalization, there are benefits that's like meeting up with what the CBN regulations. Now, I would like to ask, are there other benefits of recapitalization aside banks meeting up with the CBN regulations, of course, like you earlier mentioned, sir?
If you recall, when I gave that literal definition of recapitalization, I said it could be corporate or regulatory process. So if it is corporate, so that means the organization is on the bank decides to shore up their capital base. They can decide to do it through retained earning and all that. I mentioned the restructuring, issuance of new equity and all that. Now, for regulatory loan, your question is, are there other benefits?
Yes, sir.
Aside showing up the capital base? Now, when I was defining recapitalization too, I mentioned lending. You'll be able to lend more. No economy can grow without the banking sector, the financial sector, playing a critical role anywhere in the world, because they are more or less the drivers of the economy. Because they are the ones that will lend to people that want to do business, SMEs, institutions, corporate organizations, even government. Banks will lend to them, and when banks lend to them, they will be able to, they will fund to be able to do businesses. One, when banks lend more, there will be activity in the economy, because when they lend to you as an individual, that means either you want to go and start a company, it could be a cottage industry, it could be anything. You will employ one or two people. You are taking those people out of the employment market. When they lend to government will be able to do projects, could be project finance that will have reverberating effect, positive effects now on the economy. So the major drivers of the economy is the banking sector anywhere in the world. And when they have more capacity to lend more, so that means there will be more activities in the economy which will affect everybody positively. So it's not only about even showing up that capital, because they could decide to show up capital and not do business.
Yes, sir.
But as they are showing up their capital base, they are able to do big ticket transactions internationally. Even there will be foreign investors will come in, because people cannot come in that, okay, we have reliable banks, big banks that cannot go under. Remember in the past we have suffered what we used to call banking collapse.
Yes, sir.
Remember I think it was it the 1995 tribunal under late General Abacha, banking failure tribunal, that they had to arrest a lot of people because some people mismanaged depositors fund and all that. But now, because of the regulatory oversight and strong corporate governance being driven by CBN, things like that cannot happen again, which is why you can see a lot of activities. For example, your station, if you can decide to know that you want to scale up,
Yes, sir.
and the promoter of this station might not necessarily have that capital, you will approach banks. They will finance it when they look at your your financials, your performance and all that. They give you more fund, they will employ more people, they will take those people out of the poverty, and those people that they are collecting salary too. One or two people in their families will benefit from it. So ultimately, shoring up capital base is just to drive the economic growth in any country, because there will be financial stability. Do you understand? There will be sanity in the polity. So basically, that is it.
So, sir, we've been talking about IPOs, that's like initial public offers, and right issues, public offers. For people that have no idea about what this stands, can you briefly just give us, like a little understanding of
Okay,
what
so
it means?
let me break it down to the literal level, because personally I like breaking things down to the atomic level so that anybody can understand. So I won't be using jargons, maybe economic jargons to explain. So, for example, you said public offers. Public offerings simply is for any organization. Don't let me limit it to bank alone now.
Okay,
Organizations can decide to issue new shares. You know, I mentioned when I was talking about capitalization, I said something about issuing equity. You understand? Equity simply means shares. Now, so organization can decide that, okay, most organizations, when they want to sign, historically it could be me that will be the major promoter. I will call a few other people that, okay, we want to start this business. I will pitch them. When they see my proposal, they might fall in love, they bring funds and all that. So we could be 10, we could be 5. That will be the original promoters of the company. We'll be using our funds. It could be savings, it could be borrowings from friends and all that. But a time will come that we might not be able to sustain that again. Now we cannot decide, okay, let's sell 20% to some people. We cannot reach out to some high net worth individual. That is private placement now. We now privately we call them to come and be part of that business. That way I'm not going public. Remember, we are just reaching out to you that, okay, come and invest in a company. You come through private placement now. That is private placement. I think you understand.
Yes, sir.
So private placement is pitching them privately, high net worth individual, come and invest, come and buy equity in our business. That is your private placement. For right issues are usually to existing shareholders. So those of us, maybe like 10 of us, and we're already shareholders in Trade FM, we now decide that, okay, let's create more shares. Let's issue more shares. Maybe the original shares was ordinary, the paid up capital, initially maybe 1 million, blah, blah, blah. Now we cannot decide that, okay, let's increase. Now you have 10%. We might decide that, okay, we are giving you extra 3%. We are giving you extra 5%, but you pay for it. You might decide not to take up the offer. I cannot decide that, okay, they have offered me 5%. Why can't I increase now? I can take up your own. So that is right issue for existing shareholders. So meaning that private placement for high net worth individuals, reach out to people privately, come and buy. Just like he leaked out recently when Dangote in his refinery, he reached out to some people, private placement, that they should come and invest at a hotel price that somebody leaked out. That's private placement. Right issues for existing shareholders of that entity, of that company. But for public offerings, now, so we want to do public offer, so we want to throw it open to everybody. Like Dangote wants to do now.
Yes, sir.
Now, there is a thin line between IPO and PO.
Yes.
Initial public offer is what Dangote wants to do now. So that means the first time they will be selling to the public, giving opportunity for public to come on board and be shareholders in his company. But for example, let's say a First Bank now. First Bank will not do IPO now. First Bank will do PO, public offer to people, just like GTCO and Zenny did, I think last year thereabout.
So that's because they've done IPO before.
Okay. You understand? But Dangote is doing initial now. First time you'll be given opportunity to the public to be part of that business. So public offer is just for the public, general public, but of course it's usually limited and usually at a higher premium than private placement and right issues, meaning that the cost will be higher.
Okay. So aside POs, IPO, right issues, are there other means that bank can actually meet up with this the CBN's regulations? That's for recapitalization.
Yes, I said it earlier. So let me just quickly run over some of them again. I said issuing new equity. They can raise capital through that, so they can show their capital through issuing new equity, which I have just explained.
Yes,
it could be through right placement. So they are creating new shares. That's simply new equity. One, it could be through retained earnings. For example, a first one can decide now that, okay, at the end of the year, maybe we are made X amount as profit. They cannot decide that. The organization will not decide that we are not paying dividends to our shareholders. We are not paying dividends to our shareholders. Now we want to use it to shore up our capital base. Of course, they will go to AGM, it will be ratified and all that. So they will pay dividend instead of paying dividend. Or they can say, okay, instead of paying 10 naira per share to their shareholders, let's pay 3 naira. The 7 naira, let's use it as retain it as retain. So meaning that retain profit. They are just retaining that profit, their earnings, to show their capital base. That is another one. It could be through mergers.
Okay.
It could be through acquisition. What is merger? Merger is 2 or more entities coming together to be one. Like in the case of Unity Bank and Providus that I cited, the two of them came together to form Providus Unity. In the past, though, we have had banks like Spring Bank, all of them and all that coming together to form Spring Bank, Equatorial Trust, all of them forming Sterling. I know that if I'm not mistaken, we've had banks like Rapid Bank and all that forming the old Sky Bank, banks like that, Eco International Banks and the like. So it could be through merger. Several entities, 2 or more entities coming together to form a new bigger entity. It could be through acquisition. So meaning that a bigger entity now will assimilate another smaller entity, a weak entity. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So, and of course, it could be through debt restructuring and all that. So, yeah.
All right, so sir, how might this recapitalization drive influence digital transformation and the future demand for banking professionals?
How the recapitalization will influence
Digital transformation and
in
future,
the banking sector,
yes, sir,
and future employment opportunities
for professionals.
Okay, so let me take them separately. So because for me, I will interpret as 2 different questions. So let's start with the digitization thing you mentioned. Now, remember I mentioned that the competition will not be more stiffer because they all have funds to play with now. So meaning that you cannot continue to be using manual at this age and time, so some processes have to be digitized. So the importance of digitization in the banking sector as we speak now cannot be overemphasized, because that is where the world is going to. For example, I mentioned the issue of data analytics and all that. So meaning that we might not necessarily need more hands, but people with the right skill set. People, because now I mentioned productivity per star.
Yes, sir.
That means we don't really necessarily need more bodies, but people that can deliver. Because the competition is stiffer, you cannot continue. Okay, for example, you want to open an account now. In those days, it might take you months, weeks before you open an account. Somebody will say you give you form, 10 pages will be completing it. But now, when your competition, maybe they have digitized the account opening process, you can open it on your phone. We all have BVN, we have NIN. They just request for you, they fetch your data and all that, we give them utility bill. And how will I now waste my time? I will not waste time. I'll go to where I'll be completing 10 pages to open an account. So that means the issue of digitalization cannot be overemphasized. That is where the banking sector has no choice. In the past, we all have to walk down to the branch, to the bank to deposit money,
Yes, sir.
withdraw money. When was the last time you stepped your foot and your feet inside any banking
It's
hall?
been months, sir.
Because you have ATM.
Yes, sir.
You can do it on your phone, you do transfer and all that. So banks have no choice. They have to digitize their processes because you cannot continue to be doing manual, which was why I mentioned something like that. People reskilling, relearning. You are learning, you relearn, and people with the right set of skill. Because if all you were good on before was I could write very fast, I could open an account, I could type very fast and all that. No, that's not what we need now. You need to go and learn how to use how to interact with robotics, with AI to do things. Do you understand?
Yes.
So banks have no choice. Now they have more cash to play with. So that means any bank that wants to remain competitive will have to spend money on technology.
Okay.
And what is technology? Technology, digitization, they are the same thing. Automation, all of them, they are one. So that means technology will be the major driver. Now, in this competition, any bank that has the right technology and the right set of people will be the one to survive. Then the issue of opportunities for professionals in the industry as a result of this recapitalization. I mentioned something around, we might not necessarily need more bodies, but the reality is we will still need people with the right skill. I mentioned something around risk management skill.
Yes, sir.
I mentioned technology. I mentioned data analytics. I mentioned compliance, because now CBN is more focused on banks. they have cash to play with. So that means corporate governance will be top notch. CBN cannot just rest. They can't go to sleep that. These banks have funds to play with now. Yes, they can drive the economy. But at the same time, anybody could want to be funding and now want to play with depositors' funds. You want to use it to do whatever you like. So that means the compliance, the people that have the compliance skills. Because you can see every day CBN keeps strengthening their compliance department so that they can ensure that banks comply with regulations, with prudential guidelines and the likes and all that. So people with compliance skills will definitely be relevant. People with IT skill, technology will definitely be relevant. People with data analytics will have opportunity in the banking sector. Of course, people that are into business development, because they will be the ones to go out, and all these other strategic resource functions like risk management, credit analysis. Because, for example, now I mentioned the issue of maybe trade FM wanting to scale up, and you need more fund. You come with a proposal to banks. Some people will have to do that appraisal, credit appraisal. They will appraise that request, underwrite it, and all that. So people with such skills, they will always be relevant, and there will be market for them. It's only people that want to remain as they were. If you just believe that, okay, all your skill is I can count money. No. Because I can't remember the last time, even me myself, I entered any banking. You can see in all banks now, the footfall in banking hall, they have reduced drastically, which is even why some banks now are what we call digital bank. They don't even have physical structure.
Yes.
Do you understand? And they are making money, they are transacting. People are dealing with them because you can practically do anything you want to do on your phone now. Do you understand?
So you made mention of the new recapitalization that just started in 2024.
Yeah, the tier one.
Yes. So has it been able to meet up with its initial intention?
I believe so. Because like I said, there have been stability in the sector. No bank has gone under. Which was why I said, give it to the current government. The CBN have been able to manage it. They communicated effectively with the general populace, so there was no panic. Some in the past, if they had mismanaged it, a lot of havoc would have been wreaked because people will naturally panic. Is it that banking has problem, because if there is a run on any bank, there will be problem. When I say run now, meaning that, banks, basically what do they do now? They collect money from the surplus. You move money from the surplus sector of the economy to the deficit sector of the economy. So they collect money from depositors.
Okay.
You and I, banks will take deposit from us. The banks will now give to him. Those that want to do business, they want to borrow. You want to keep. We collect from you. We keep it safely for you. Then those that need money, banks will give it to them to do business, of course, at an interest rate. Okay. To cover the interest they will pay to you, and of course to cover the bank's effort too. The bank will have to be paid for their operational expenses and the likes. Do you understand? That is simply what banks do. So now imagine that CBN had mismanaged the latest one, and there is a run on any bank that all their depositors want their money at the same time. Where would they get it from? Because they have lent that money to people, that bank will go under. But CBN have been able to manage through effective communication, constant communication and interaction with bank management, the general populace and all that. And even the latest one that I mentioned, it was supposed to have ended 31st of March.
Okay.
But because they did not want any bank to go under, they have been managing it, which is why they are still giving, they extended it for some other banks that are not meant to. So, do you understand? So, I think they manage it properly, and there hasn't been any loss of job, there hasn't been any panic, which honestly give it to them. I think is the way to go going forward. Any recapitalization, whether in the banking sector, insurance sector, I think it needs to be managed. For example, in the insurance sector now, they are also undergoing the same thing, and I think they are on. Well, for now, NICOM has said that's National Insurance Commission. They are regulators, the regulators in the insurance sector. They have said 31st of July is still the deadline, but I believe they might have to extend it so that they can manage it, just like the CBN manage the capitalization in the banking sector. Because what will it profit the nation if, because you now want to stick to a particular deadline, some organizations go under, people working there, you throw them into the labor market, there are people depending on them and all that. So I think we need to be sensitive to the times that we are in and manage things the way CBN has managed the latest capitalization in the banking industry. Thank you.
All right, sir. So So there's this question for people that want to go into, they want to be a shareholder for any company. You being the acting national president of RPG, yes. What do you have to say on that? Is it a good thing for people to buy shares? For those that have no idea about IPO, PO, right issue or something, is it something that they can actually go into for those that have no idea about it?
Okay, so let me get on. You might need to elucidate on your question. Hold on. Are you limiting it to the banking sector or generally?
Generally.
Okay, so you want me to give advice whether it's a good thing for people to invest?
Yes, sir.
So now that's stage one. Stage two, is it invest solely in equity or investment generally?
Generally.
Okay, so beautiful. Now, okay, let me put up a disclaimer first before I start. This is not a financial advice.
Okay, sir.
Because I'm not paid me for financial advice.
Of course, sir.
The reality is, the importance of investment cannot be overemphasized. So meaning that we all need to invest, whether you like it or not. So now, if you're in doing investment as an individual, you need to answer one or two questions. What is my goal, my investment goal? What is my risk tolerance level? Because that will determine the kind of investment you go into. So, depending on your age.
Okay.
Yes. Because, for example, somebody in his or her 20s, 30s can take some risk. Even if heaven and earth crash,
yes, sir,
the probability that you still bounce back is more than half. You can still come back. But somebody in his 50s, you are about to retire, and you go and take some sort of risk, that might be your end. That is the reality. If the investment should go south, you could be lucky. And like the Yoruba will say, one jello. But if it goes south, that will likely be the end of that person because you don't have enough time to recover. But somebody in his 20s, his 30s can still recover. So that is another one. So your risk tolerance level. Am I a high risk person? Can I take high risk? Middle risk, low risk. So that means if you want to do low risk investment now, why not people go into money market?
Okay.
So go and be buying treasury bill, government bonds, federal government bonds and all that. You know, what is short tenor killing, so maybe 90 days and all that. Within 90 days and all that. And the reality is your money is secure. Because government, the worst that will happen, they will print money. Abi?
Yes, sir.
Government will always fulfill its obligation. However, the return might not be that high. But if you are content with it, that I beg, your money will be saved and you still earn something on it, you can do that. You can decide to go and give your money to the bank. I'm not saying save your money with bank now. You could save your money with bank. If you don't mind it, you know your money will be secure. Whatever interest are paying, you are content to that. That is fine. Okay. You can go and do fixed deposit and all that. If you're a middle risk taker, medium risk taker, okay, I can do, you can decide to go and not do some other investment. If you are a high risk taker, you can go and invest in crypto. Because whether you like it or not, the reality is,
yes, sir,
the world will soon adopt it fully. I know in America now, if they are not even approved, there is something that is undergoing Senate review at the House, Clarity Act. It has to do with digital assets. And even President Tinubu just signed something around that in Nigeria too. So whether we like it or not, crypto is not an asset, digital asset. So if you know your eyes there, you can go and take it. Meaning that you know that if your whole investment goes to zero, you will not die. And it will go to 1,000. Do you understand?
Yes.
And you can go and do maybe commercial papers, Euro bond and the like. So, but ultimately, what am I saying is everybody needs to invest.
Yes, sir.
Because I think even in the Bible, something around investment was mentioned that they say you can call raining days.
Yes,
so,
sir.
and when we were all growing up, they would say save for the raining days. It is not that when the rain is falling, it's just that there will be days that the sun will be hot,
yes, sir,
that things will be bright, that you'll be fine. And there will be days that the rain will be falling, you will not be able to do any of that, wet days and all that. So everybody needs to invest. That is reality. And my advice Personally now,
Okay.
the earlier the better.
Okay, sir.
And nothing I believe is too small to say.
Okay,
No,
sir.
not because you cannot downplay the power of compounding.
Thank you so much for that, sir. So lastly, back to recapitalization, sir. Looking ahead, what policy measures would you recommend to ensure that the banking recapitalization drive strengthens the financial sector without placing an unnecessary burden on workers?
So, policy drive. Well, so they should continue the way this last exercise was managing the banking sector through effective communication, constant communication and interaction with the general populace. And again, of course, the regulators too, not to rest on their laurels by constantly monitoring management of bank. Because the reality is some might want to be funny now. Because they are all under pressure. They need to deliver. Remember, those that have invested in these institutions in forms of maybe equity and all that have bought these shares, that got this money for them to meet up with the capitalization. They expect return on their investment. And so banks management most of the time they are under pressure to deliver. Because in finance, return on investment, return on equity and the likes. They need return on their investment. So banks management they are under pressure. So which they will pass down to their workers. So I think the CBN needs to be up and doing. But of course that is why we are there. We are there to stand in the gap for our members, because while we appreciate that they need to work, as BFI has always been, of course, we are an association of senior staff, so we have always advocated for our people to deliver. You must deliver. But that is why you are there. Because the reality is, it is because you are in that organization that you are a member of us BFI, you must deliver. So we will never encourage non-performers. No. But while our people are being encouraged, are being pushed to perform, at the same time, management has to be sensitive too. We cannot just give people some targets that they cannot meet. There is no way they can meet it and that. So we need to manage it. While we are pushing our people to be productive, they should also be sensitive to the times that we are in that. The market is not smiling. Do you understand? We are struggling. Do you understand? So, but of course, once CBN continues along that path, constant monitoring of the sector, of course, as BFI is also there to keep a close tab on this management. So whenever they want to go the other way, we usually call them, because of course, has mantra is we usually negotiate, we discuss, because we are senior staffers now, people that are put in decades in the industry, that have the same certification of whosoever is managing all these banks and all that. Do you understand? So you should expect some level of engagement between us and them. So we usually engage, call their attention to it when they are going wrong, that no, that is not the best way to go. This is against labor law and all that. But ultimately, I think we are still doing well as a nation, as a sector, and as an association. And we continue down that path. That is the reality.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your time, sir, and for this brilliant opinion you shared with everybody, sir. We really appreciate, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you once again. And have a nice day, sir.
And you too. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Everybody,